You're listening to the Sports Circus, and I'm Mike Golick.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Today's show is brought to you by Al's #1 Italian Beef at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago. 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago. Folks, if you've never had an Italian beef sandwich, you're missing out. This is the originator. It's the best in the business. My favorite, probably be yours too. Check them out at alsbeef.com, alsbeef.com. You can also go to goldbelly.com and just type in Al's Beef and pick up some of our favorites, and likely it'll be your favorite as well. That's Al's #1 Italian Beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy, or find them online at alsbeef.com or at goldbelly.com. Nice round of applause. Yes! For the best Italian beef in the business. And I'll tell you what, folks, with us today is Chris Pacelli, but you can call him Bones from Italian Beef, or from Al's Italian Beef. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show.
Welcome. How you doing, Sal?
Buddy, everything's going great. Hey, look, I'm wearing your hat. You know it's going good. Yeah, for everybody on the camera, there it is. Boom.
There it is.
Hey. Hey, I'll put my hat back on so they can't see my shiny head, if you know what I mean, right?
The American flag in the back.
That's right. Hey, so for all those people that don't know what an Italian beef sandwich is, what is it?
An Italian beef sandwich is actually a roast. It's a top sirloin roast. And what we do is we roast it for about 3.5 hours. And after 3.5 hours, we let it cool down for 24 hours. Then we start trimming all the fat off of it and the nerve. And then we slice it so thin that you can actually see through it. But it's back in its own juices when we cook it. We do it a little well done. So when we put it back to the juice that it was cooked in, it sucks it back in and makes it a very juicy sandwich. It's one of the juiciest sandwiches out there that you can eat. It's more juicy than Philly cheesesteak or something similar to that, French dippy. But it's not a French dip. But it's got to give it an idea, something like that. But it's when we take the fork and we scoop it onto the bread, and we don't hold the juice off. We go right from the pan to the bread, and it makes it a juicy sandwich. Then we wrap it in our wax paper, and we put giardiniera on it, or sweet peppers, or sometimes both.
Yeah, but for the audience that doesn't know what that is, what are the giardiniera? What's the sweet peppers?
Giardiniera in Italian means vegetables of the garden. And everybody makes a different style. We make one that enhances the Italian beef. It's a spice with celery and different spices in it, and that is to ferment for about 3 to 4 days before we introduce it to the sandwich. So if you come in and you order an Italian beef sandwich and you want giardiniera or bell peppers, which we cook bell peppers also to put on the sandwich, so it's either hot or sweet. Or dipped, you want a dip, there's a lot of little different niches on how you would order an Italian beef sandwich. Most people like it regular because there's a lot of juice on it, and then they would like, about 90% of the people ask for either one or the other pepper. So, but the giardiniera is the more popular one.
Right, and there are a lot of people across the country, they confuse the Italian beef sandwich because it's a very localized product from Chicago. And there's a history that you're going to get into in just a minute.
All right.
But they confuse it with that blasted Philly cheesesteak sandwich, which is it's extremely different.
Different.
Exactly.
Okay, well, Philly cheesesteak is basically flat grill. And you chop up some thin-cut pieces of meat, scoop it up, put some cheese whiz on it, wrap it up, and hand it to the person. The Italian beef sandwich is roasted for 3.5 hours in its own juices and spices. Then we separate that and we put it in the refrigerator overnight and get it down to about 38 degrees. The next day when we take it out, we put the knife to it and we start trimming off everything that's unedible, the fat, the nerve, and then we put it on a slicer that we have. I call it the Frankenstein because I keep reviving it from, it's an old slicer, but it's precise. So it'll slice the meat so thin that you can actually see through it. And we do that, we slice maybe about 20 pounds, and we put that in the pan. Then what I'll do is, as we're serving, I'll introduce the beef to the pan that's in the steam table that's full of the gravy, and stir it up for a couple of minutes because it only takes a minute or so to get real hot because it's so thin. Then we scoop that on with a knife, with a fork, and we wrap it, put the giardiniera on it, wrap it up, and serve it. That's called cooking. The other one is frying. There's a difference between Philly cheesesteak and the Italian beef sandwich. Not that I have anything against Philly cheesesteak, but it's two different items.
Yeah, it's completely different. And, why are we talking about this here? Yes, it's a sports and entertainment show. You've been on countless television shows. You've been in commercials and this and that. You've had different episodes of this show or that show filmed or recorded inside your facility. Yeah. And so
food shows. We just did one with Bunny Velasco, The Legend of the Fork, that was out in November. I'm doing right now called March Madness. We're in competition against the other beef stands in Chicago. Right now I'm winning, but we got to go through a couple of, just like the basketball, we have to go through different.
Right, you're in brackets.
Win one and then win another.
Right. It's in the tournament, NCAA tournament. You got to win 7 games basically to win it all. In this case, in this tournament, so it's kind of a sports related thing, right? So you have March Madness, so you've got Beef Madness. Yeah, you've got Italian beef sandwich madness. They have the same thing with pizza. I don't want to talk about that right now. Maybe a little bit later on in the show. But so there's this competition, folks, across Chicagoland for the best Italian beef sandwich. Now, if you are a member of Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook, now also everybody's watching this live on there as well, you've seen this guy before. You've seen him all around the city. You've seen him, hell, you can't get away from him. So this is a guy that has a very familiar face, but his product precedes him. And there's a long history to it. In fact, why don't you give everybody a little bit of, well, maybe a couple of minutes of history, and then we're going to go to break, and then we'll come back with that.
All right. Well, it started off with my grandfather back in 1917, 1918, in that years. And my grandfather is a man who really invented the Italian beef sandwich. He was a street peddler, which used to go around serving sandwiches, not beef sandwiches, but cold meat sandwiches. And one day he gets invited to a wedding. And the weddings in them days were called peanut weddings because people couldn't afford to go to these elaborate halls that they do now. So he went to this peanut wedding, and there they had a piece of roast beef on a table. And they were cutting it with a knife and putting it between 2 pieces of bread and serving it. So my grandfather, sandwich person that he is, he goes home, trial and error, makes this and starts presenting it to the next party or the next wedding. And that's how that took off back then. Then successful. He got rid of the bookies and he took my father in, and they became partners, and they started running this beef stand. Well, the other gamblers saw what my uncle, his nickname was Baba, and they saw what my uncle was doing. They making money legitimately and didn't have to worry about going to jail. So they started opening up beef sandwiches. So everybody had their own little niche and their own little taste. And so far we're the oldest one out there. We're about going on 86 years now.
Yeah, and that's good stuff. Here in our last 20 or 30 seconds of the segment, I mean, look at it this way. Every restaurant, it seemed like every corner bar, whatever the hell it was, back in the day, they all had a crap game in the basement or behind the property or whatever the hell it was. Yeah, you know, it is what it is, folks. But I'll tell you what, this is a really interesting story. We're going to be back here in just a few minutes with Chris Pacelli from Al's #1 Italian Beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. Check them out at alsbeef.com or on Goldbelly and just type in Al's Beef on goldbelly.com and pick up yours today. Back here in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on The Circus.
Hello Americans, it's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time, that's 800-950-2049. Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average and best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UppercutChops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at UppercutChops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus with Bones from Al's Italian Beef. We're talking to Sal, and we're having a good time today.
That's right. Hey, listen, we're having a good time because we always have a good time, whether we're talking Italian beef or we're talking Italian beef. I don't know which one it is, but usually it has something to do with Italian beef, if you know what I mean. All right, a big welcome into everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, all of our independents as well, from Honolulu all the way down to Atlanta, WAUD over in Auburn, Alabama. Thanks for joining us, as well as WDJY in Atlanta, and CBS Sports 1500 KHKA over in Honolulu, and a bunch of points in between. You know, Chris, we're on, I don't know, we have another 206 stations over and above all these other ones that we'd be at commercial break if I was talking about them right now. But the good news is we're also on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, and Wild Cable Television, Hotel TV in over 500,000 rooms, and everybody on Facebook. It's Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. If you don't know it, go to Facebook and type in Chicago Food Favorites, join the group, follow the group, share your recipes, whatever. Talk about your favorite foods, but of course, don't forget to talk about Italian beef, especially Al's Italian Beef, because it is the best of the business, and always a big round of applause whenever we bring on Bones from Al's Italian Beef. Listen, you're talking about the history in the last segment, and I had mentioned, you know, down back in the day when everybody had their little storefronts and whatnot, there was a little bit of action going on in the back of the building, so to say. Maybe a crap game, maybe a this, maybe that, maybe they're pitching pennies. What do you remember as a kid growing up being down there on Taylor Street?
Well, yeah, there was a lot of little bookie places, like storefronts, guys that had grocery stores, guys that had little hot dog stands, taverns. Yeah, and there was a lot of, you're right, behind the schoolyard, there was a lot of games going on after school, you know. So, yeah, there was a lot of action back in them days, back through well, I sort of grew up through the 60s, but my brothers were a little older than me. They were 50s kids. And, you know, we had our little gangs, but it was mostly fist fight type of stuff. Never had no knives or guns or nothing. We thought those guys were sissies.
That's right.
You had to handle it with your hands. So, yeah, there was a lot of that stuff. We had the east side, the west side of Taylor Street, and I got a picture of my place with all my friends on the corner hanging out, and there's about 8 of us there, and I call it the real West Side Story, the picture.
Yeah, you know,
So we were from the west side.
well, my grandparents used to have a little grocery store down on Taylor Street, you know, way back in the day. And my father and I had a very interesting connection. You know, we didn't go camping. You know, a lot of kids and whatever. You know, pick your favorite area. Yeah, they like to go camping with their parents and all this other stuff. My old man took me to the track. I grew up at the track, learned how to read the racing form when I was 10 years old, and I was distributing football cards when I was 11, 12 years old. Yeah, come on. I mean, this is what happens in the neighborhood, so to say. That's the one thing my father and I shared.
We were outside a lot, too. We were playing a lot of games, like Ringalivio, Buck, Tag. I mean, there was a lot of stuff to do. You know, as we were little kids, we were always out on the street playing ball, too.
That's right.
You know, we were sandlot guys, but we were actually street. You know, we didn't have a sandlot. We had an asphalt plot.
That's right. It's like playing stickball back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It wasn't. That was a New York thing, you know, stickball. But we played with a regular baseball bat. Them guys couldn't afford baseball bats.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? The games in the street were the best. Even something simple like kick the can. You ever play that when you were a kid? Oh, come on. That was the all-time favorite for everybody. Yes.
I remember making scooters out of milk crates. We used to put our skates on a 2x4, nail a milk crate to it, and we thought what we had a scooter. Those were the first scooters.
Yeah.
They were the iron skates.
Yeah, look where they're at now with electronic everything.
A lot of noise going down the street.
I know. Well, now they got those electronic ones. You don't even know when someone's creeping up on you and they're doing 30 miles an hour. You can't even hear them.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
It's pretty scary stuff. So back.
I guess time goes on, huh?
Well, you know, I think what it is in today's time, we think about food and we think of sports. Look, we've seen a lot of evolution in sports from, we'll just stick with baseball for a minute, right? And we've seen the dead ball era go to a live ball, right? And we've seen rule changes in this sport and that sport. But you know what has stayed the same? Is good food. Good food, the rules have changed? No. The rules are still, look, like when you make an Italian beef sandwich, it takes a long time to prepare the Italian beef.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people say, well, what's the secret of 86 years? And I say, well, with any successful business, it's consistency. You have to be consistent with your product. You can't vary. If things cost a little more, raise it a couple pennies, people don't mind.
Yeah. Well, tell a little bit more about that, because a lot of people don't know what that really means.
Well, what you're doing is, products go up and down all the time. And
right.
Every business tries to hold their prices as long as they could.
Right.
So we do the same thing, but you don't vary from your product.
That's right.
You buy the same product that you always had. You buy the same spices that you always had. You preserve it and present it the same way that you always did. If you start varying from that, you're going to lose your customers.
Yeah.
They won't tell you sometimes. They'll just not come back. So the worst thing you can do is do that. We have an 80 to 90% return. I wish we had 100, but, what are you going to do? And people say, well, what do you think about your stand over the other stands? And I say, well, I'll tell you what. There's 10 million people in the Chicagoland area. If I can get 100,000 a year, I'm doing pretty good.
That's right. And, there's nothing wrong with that, because, look, people, they come back because they want the same flavor. They want the same experience. They want to get that taste that they can't get. Like for me, whenever I go back home, the first thing I do is I go get my favorite Italian beef. I go get my favorite pizza. I'll go get my favorite Italian ice. I'll get my favorite cannoli as well. And then I'm pretty much set. And after I've gained about 11 pounds from that, then I'm out to do it again in a couple of days.
Yes, everybody goes back to their home. I remember pizzas. You couldn't beat our pizza no matter what that we had around here. And same thing with hot dogs, We do the old, what they call, a lot of people say about this new, well, it ain't new, but they talk about the Chicago hot dog.
Right.
Which with all the tomatoes and stuff on it. Well, we do the Depression dog. Our Depression dog was before that. Mm-hmm. What we did is we make our own French fries too. And what we do is put the French fries on top of the hot dog and then roll it up. So we got basics are mustard, onions, relish, and sport peppers. And then we put the fries on top. Mm-hmm. And it's called a Depression dog because that's the way it was through the years, during the Depression and everything here in Chicago. But then as it grew into the 60s and 70s, some people didn't want to fool around with French fries, so they started using tomatoes and pickles and, different relishes that they would adorn their hot dog with.
Right.
So we just stood with the old-fashioned way at the store, and we make our own fries, like I said, and I also get awards on that also, on my French fries.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's really good stuff. Of course, that always deserves a round of applause every time. But guess what? And there's the delayed kung fu applause just because we can. But, I like the idea that the return business, it will just keep going perpetually because the parents bring it to the kids, right? The kids eat it. Then the kids grow up. What do? They bring it to their kids and so forth and so on. This is exactly what happened. So for decades and decades, that's what we've had, haven't we?
Oh, yes. It's generation after generation. I've gotten people back here. My father took me here when I was a kid. My grandfather took me here.
Mm-hmm.
And so on and so on. And this was, it's like a happening. And then when Skippy across the street opens up the Italian lemonade stand, it's like a festival during the summer here. You know, between the Italian lemonade, us, and the flavor of the old Italian neighborhood there. And then we have a fest in July also that we present, not me, but, you know, all the Italians get together and have little little stands and stuff on the street once a year.
Yeah.
And which is a lot of fun. It brings people from all over the country. And, well, right now we're known all over the country because of our, you know, of the fest and we've been around so long also.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, hold that thought, because when we come back from break, we're going to get into the festas and all that other fun stuff, because as the weather changes, it gets better. Everybody likes to go to these festas, including myself. And that's the one thing I miss from being back home in Chicago. But being here in Vegas, you know, we have our own as well, but it's not the same, that's for sure. All right, folks, back here in just a few minutes with Bones, Chris Pacelli from Al's Number One Italian Beef at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. Check them out at alsbeef.com. Also on Goldbelly at goldbelly.com. Type in Al's Beef. Back in a few. Don't go anywhere.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-320-2751. 800-320-2751. 800-320-2751. That's 800-320-2751.
If you're trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more.
800-957-6209. 800-957-6209. 800-957-6209. That's 800-957-6209.
Do you know someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Are you being audited or investigated? Has the IRS sent you a letter demanding payment? You may not owe what they claim. Make this free call to the tax doctor now. Let them negotiate with the IRS on your behalf.
800-296-1209. 800-296-1209. That's 800-296-1209.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV, right here in Las Vegas. Folks, this segment is brought to you in part by Al's Number One Italian Beef at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. You can check them out at alsbeef.com, and you can also check them out at goldbelly.com. Just type in Al's Beef, and you'll be able to grab everything and anything you want from Al's Italian Beef right over at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago. But guess what, folks? This is really good stuff, and I can assure you that this is the kind of thing that you want everybody and their brother and their mother to have, because it is very, very exciting stuff. I guarantee it. And folks, you don't want to miss those wonderful flavors flowing around in your mouth, chewing up the best sandwich you've ever had. All right, folks. And a big welcome back to everybody on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, as well as Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, and Wow Cable Television, and also on Hotel TV. That's also a very fun venue, if you will. Boy, that's really good stuff. All right, back here with Chris Pacelli. Hey, Chris, look, we've talked a little bit about baseball, a little bit about some rules, not really much about baseball, more like the Sandlot stuff. And when we think about the seasonal changes, and, you know, people's appetites will typically change for the cold weather products like the ice cream or the Italian ice, but around the clock, around the year, doesn't matter what month, what day, whatever the heck it is, they always seem to want an Italian beef sandwich. Why is that?
Well, especially in Chicago, it's our street food, and every town has their own. But we have a street food here that's called the Italian beef sandwich, and it's starting to get known all over the country. Now, other people are going out with it and trying it and trying to open up stands in different cities. But the original is us in Chicago, and so in the summertime, we have a lot of people that walk around, and they'll eat in the parking lot, they'll eat in the back of their cars, you know. So it's really a real street food. And like I say, we have 4 items that I sell. It's Italian beef, Italian sausage that we charbroil on real charcoal, and I also have the Vienna hot dogs and Polish sausage. So, and then we make our own French fries also. And everything is made in-house. The jardiniere, the sweet peppers. The only thing I don't make is hot dogs. I mean, I make them, but I don't make them.
Right. So what's the difference between the person that's buying an Italian beef sandwich from other parts of the country versus your location?
Well, my location is the way we make it compared to commercialized, because these big companies are starting to commercialize it, and they're putting it in grocery stores and stuff, and it's not what you get. It's like anything else. If you let somebody else cook for you, that's what you're going to get. Somebody else is cooking. But when we cook for you, it's like what I would say homemade, because we care about what you leave here, leave my beef stand with in the thoughts of your head. And you can see that I have a lot of people that praise us all over the country. And even out of the country, I get people from all over. I've had a whole town from Italy come in one time. I had people from France. I mean, even Saudi Arabians that came in, you know. So we had a lot of people from all over. England.
Well,
name the part of the world, and they've tasted our product.
Well, the one thing that I find a little bit unusual is that, you know, I've tried different Italian beef sandwiches from different organizations, right? Some people will buy it from Vienna, for example, right? The famous hot dog company. But, you know, Vienna has ventured into the beef world. But, I mean, their Italian beef is, in my opinion, it's not as good as the hot dog for sure, which they're the gold standard, in my opinion, for hot dogs. Why is it that their Italian beef has that, like, grayish color?
Because because they don't want no moving parts in the ovens and stuff. So everything is like a big steam bath for these, and so it doesn't really cook right. See, you need gas. You need that temperature. You need that. We cook it at 430 degrees, and it stays in there 3.5 hours. The only thing I add is a little more water to the pan. But when you're doing it good, not only that, a lot of these commercialized companies, they pump it. And what I mean by pump it, see, by the time you eat my sandwich, I lost 50% of the product.
Right.
Slicing, shrinkage, and just delivering it, presenting it to you. So by the time you get it, I've lost 50% of my weight. And they don't do that. Solutions or stuff, or whatever they have in these companies, and they lose only about maybe 15 to 18% by the time it reaches you. So when you sandwich it spices, I mean, they're already full of liquid. Say, not spice, it's already full of liquid. When I present my beef to the gravy, it sucks it in like a vacuum cleaner. Theirs, it just runs off like a duck's ass.
Right. Well, unfortunately, sometimes it comes out right, sometimes it doesn't. But that grayish color, every time I see that, if somebody prepares something or they send it, or you order it at one of these places, they say, oh, yeah, we have Italian beef here. Yeah, but it has that awful gray color, but then it doesn't taste right either. I don't understand that.
Well, they're buying it from a manufacturer. And like I said, they pump it up with products. They pump the beef product before they cook it.
Right.
And then they steam cook it. And so it doesn't get to a good temperature to cook the meat.
Right.
It's out sort of gray looking. But we don't do that. And there's and a couple of the other companies that, beef places that are in the city,
Mm-hmm.
the ones that are the mom and pa, similar to what I got, they do what I do. But they don't have my spices. Everything is different. They have their taste, they have my taste. They have their fans, I have my fans.
Right.
I just think I got a little more fans than they do.
Yeah. well, you know what? You're lucky like that. It's not really luck, though.
Like a baseball team. Some got more fans than the others.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's not for any other reason. Not because one team's better than the other one. It's just that the fans. I remember back in the day, the fans would be able to go to only the Cub games in the daytime, right? And then the night game were owned by the White Sox.
Night games at Sox, right?
Right. And
now the Cubs are doing it also.
Yeah, of course they are. Of course, because they weren't drawing enough people in the daytime, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But ultimately, they both draw. I mean, let's face it. The Cub.
Yeah, the Sox have a great neighborhood. They're from the Bridgeport area. There's a lot of people down there, real loyalists. We're mostly on the south side, so we're sort of like the Sox people.
Yeah.
Taylor Street is. And then you got the North Siders, which is a little different because they have a lot more taverns and places to go on the north side than they do on the south side of Chicago. So when you go to Wrigley Field, it's more like a happening.
Yeah.
Than it is with Sox, even though the Sox bring in a lot of people also.
Yeah. Well, they do. It's just it's a different crowd.
Yeah. So, they're surrounded by a lot of Irish, a lot of Italians, the Sox area. It's pretty well. It's called Bridgeport, which is an area just south of Taylor Street. Taylor Street is known as Little Italy here in Chicago.
Right.
Bridgeport has a lot of Italians there also.
Yeah, they do. They do. I mean, there's a lot of food, a lot of great food around the city. And listen, folks, if you're watching this or if you're listening to this, it doesn't matter where in America. Look, the food's phenomenal in Chicago. It's not because I'm from there, not because of Chris is from there. It's because the food really is good. We think about pizza in our last minute of the segment here. Pizza was invented in Napoli, right? They brought it over to New York, and New York has their greasy triangle garbage pizza. But pizza was perfected in Chicago. It is what it is, folks. We have different types of pizza, whether it's the deep dish, whether it's the regular thin crust or the Sicilian thick crust. End of day, it was perfected in Chicago, but you don't see the Italian beef sandwich in New York. It's a Chicago thing. And so those people are kind of stuck with that Philly cheesesteak sandwich, and so be it. If you don't know, you don't know, right? So you're kind of stuck with whatever it is that is available to you. But in this particular case, go to Al's Italian Beef, Al's number one Italian Beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. Again, you could pick up also a nice supply at alsbeef.com. Also, you could pick up some Al's Beef over at goldbelly.com. That's goldbelly.com. Just put in the search bar, Al's Beef. Listen, folks, great gifts, great stuff for your house. And I want to make sure that I thank Chris Pacelli from Al's number one Italian Beef for joining us today. All right, nice round of applause for him whenever the Kung Fu applause tends to show up. And Chris, we're going to see you, there it is, we're going to see you on another episode right here on the Sports Circus. So, Chris, we'll see you and we'll talk to you soon. Hell, I'll give you a call later or tomorrow, okay?
All right, thank you, Sal. Take care.
All right, buddy, we'll talk to you soon. And folks, don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on the Circus. Back in just a few minutes.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
Do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Are you being audited or investigated? Has the IRS sent you a letter demanding payment? You may not owe what they claim. Make this free call to the tax doctor now. Let them negotiate with the IRS on your behalf.
800-296-1209. 800-296-1209. That's 800-296-1209.
I'm your Ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day. Are you a small business owner or pursuing the dream of starting your own company? Do you know where to start or how to grow that existing business? The American Business Trust Company has the answers you need. The American Business Trust Company can help you with startup capital, business strategy, sales and marketing, and establishing your company with a physical location or on the internet. You decide. You bring the idea, the American Business Trust Company can help with the rest. For a free evaluation, you may visit them online at abtrustco.com. That's abtrustco.com, or call them at 657-600-1876. That's the American Business Trust Company, 657-600-1876. Call them today. They can help your business right away.
This is Emory Moorhead from the 1985 Super Bowl champion Chicago Bears, and welcome to Sal's Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Folks, this show so far has been brought to you by Al's #1 Italian Beef at 1079 West Taylor Street over in Chicago's Little Italy. Check them out at alsbeef.com. Also, you can check them out at goldbelly.com and just add in your favorite meal or your favorite provider. In this case, in the search bar, just put in Al's Beef, and it'll bring you to the different options that they have available. Of course, a nice round of applause for them. Yes! And we've had some technical difficulties, and I'm trying to see if this is actually working because we're streaming it, and it looks like the streamer's working. It sounds like some of the audio bit isn't working, so you're going to have to bear with it. Let's try a couple of tests here. Let's try an explosion sound. Let's see if this works. It does work. All right, the explosion works. All right, so everybody on Facebook can hear me now. And of course, everybody else on all of our network affiliates can hear us. And Hotel TV, hey, sorry, folks. Listen, it's live. Anything could happen here on the circus. And you know, what we didn't get a chance to talk about was this tournament bracket thing that we have for Italian beef sandwiches across Chicagoland. And why are we talking about this in the first place? I'll tell you why. Listen, good food, first and foremost, makes the world go round. And now Al's Italian Beef has been around since 1938. They are the originals in the whole Italian beef world. Very different from the Philly cheesesteak world. This is very, very different. It's an entirely different animal. But I can tell you that when you're going to a sporting event in Chicagoland, or you're coming back from, I don't know, a night out on the town or whatever the hell it is, listen, folks, anything can happen. And even some of the music will come in on its own, and you never know what's going to happen here. So we've had some technical issues here, but we're working through them. And the best part is the show goes on. And as Colonel Bucky, our longtime producer, had told us, he told me this back in 2017. He said, you know what? It is a circus, and you prove it every day. And that's the truth. I mean, we really prove the mayhem on a regular basis with this show. You never know what the hell's going to happen. And so, honestly, folks, a podcast, you've all heard of these before, right? There's 3 million of them out there, something like that. The podcast will fix everything in the mix. That's not what we're doing here. Maybe we have to cut out maybe one bit of language. But at the end of the day, listen, the content is what the content is. And we leave it in there because we really don't know what the bleep is going to happen in the middle of big interviews and stuff like that. Listen, we've had some crazy things go on. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we have the great Brian Urlacher that's going to be with the Sports Circus. And yes, that's going to be a large audience show. And imagine having, these technical glitches, because they do happen. It is what it is. And we had that happen one time. This was back in 2018, in January of 2018. We had that movie, Jerry Maguire, was about Lee Steinberg. So we had Lee Steinberg, who is the godfather of all these sports agents in the world. He's the first. So Lee Steinberg at that time was the biggest guest on the show. And luckily, I had somebody with me to kind of co-host the show. And the reason I say this, I was coming back from the first break. And after the first break, what happened? The power goes out. And when the power goes out, you're like, uh-oh. And I'm looking up like, oh, the sky is falling right now. It was one of those terrible, terrible events. But I can assure you that things do happen. And so we just had this happen with Chris Pacelli from Al's Italian Beef, Al's #1 Italian Beef. And I can assure you that, look, these things you cannot predict. And there was no power outage, no nothing. The stream was going in one area, wasn't going in another one. The audio was going on in one place. The audio wasn't going on elsewhere. And now the computer is trying to basically tell me, is trying to talk to me and say, oh, now you have access. So this particular show is being self-produced. And so the crazy part about it is sometimes when there's a technical issue within your studio, you have to somehow duck and dodge and counterpunch those, right? Like I'll use boxing analogies, right? You have to counterpunch those glitches, and you have to find a way to work through it while the clock is still going on. See, we have hard breaks. When we go to a sponsored break or a commercial break, or it doesn't matter whether you're on public radio or non-commercial station, whatnot. See, this is a regular FCC regulated show. So A, we've got to watch our language. We can't see the bad stuff. But on top of it, we have hard breaks that come 12 minutes past the hour, 27 minutes past the hour, and 42 minutes past the hour. And then we're out at 58 minutes and 50 seconds because there's usually a 1 minute commercial or announcement, which brings us to 59:50 on the 1 hour clock. And then the last 10 seconds is for station identification, right? So you're listening to WDJY in Atlanta, 99.1 FM, or WAUD, 1230 AM, Auburn, Alabama. These are the kind of things that happen from 59:50 to 60 minutes, right? So you have to leave room for these in the middle of this discussion, whatever your discussion is. And if you don't, when we go to hard break, at 12 minutes past the hour. Those announcements and commercials are playing at that time. So the video may still be on, but the audio is potted down. It's basically brought down so you, the listening audience, sometimes I leave them on, sometimes I don't. So for example, everybody on Facebook right now, you can hear everything that's going on even when we go on commercial break, because that's how I left the mic open. However, in this particular case, we had an audio and video problem, so we actually had to restart the video engine as well as the audio. And so just by sheer luck, the audio stayed intact, and our actual backup file, which is I can't share the screen with you, so otherwise you'd see this really cool graph across the bottom in this audio engine that I'm using. But folks, there's so much that go into producing a show, and for all those people that have your own podcast, hey, good for you. Good for you. I'll give you a little round of applause, and I'll cut it short because it's not a real FCC show. And why is that significant? For all those people that want to produce your own show, you want to start your own show, there is a company called AMP TV, AAMP.TV, that produces, broadcasts, and distributes shows. So you don't have to deal with all these other crazy events that may occur. So I can assure you that AMP TV has been doing this for quite some time. That's where I learned from. I learned from all of our engineers on how to get around all of these glitches in these shows. So in case you're wondering, are these glitches legit? Are they real? Yes, they are real. And in fact, it's funny because one person had said, well, there's no sound on here. So as I turn the volume up, I can hear the reverb. Listen. Said, well, there's no sound on here. No, there is sound. So as I turn the volume up, I can hear the reverb. Yes. Sorry, Mark. Said, well, there's no sound on here. No, there is sound. Right, there it is. All right. So you heard basically it's a time delay. It's about a 2-second delay. And so Mark Harrison, you're saying there is no sound. Yes, there is sound. And then they say video has ended. No, the video does have sound and the video is intact. So these are the things that we have to deal with from a production. I know Mark co-hosts on somebody else's podcast. I saw an announcement recently on that. Nice round of applause for Mark. You can call him Happening Harry. Very interesting guy from Chicagoland, by the way, too. Just Google Happening Harry. He's all over the place. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, when it comes to production and broadcasting and editing and distributing and all this other stuff, post-production, there's a lot that goes on here, folks. So listen, this started out as a sports show on radio at 6 a.m. We're in our 8th year of this now. And so it started out just then like that, but it has migrated into sports and television and entertainment. So we do talk about food. That's why we actually had Al's Italian Beef on here, because not only is it one of our favorites, but more importantly, it is food. And listen, a lot of things from events in your life come around what? They come around food. There's a food event. There's food this. We're going to cater for this. We're going to have food for this. I mean, look, we're all professional eaters. And the thing that drives me crazy is, oh, well, I'm a foodie. Really? I'm a foodie too, I guess. Everybody is a foodie. We're all professional eaters. But it's not a designation, kind of like having MBA after your name or JD or PhD, whatever the hell it is. Pick your favorite alphabet soup. So just because you're a food eater, a professional, I think we're all professional food eaters, if you know what I mean, right? But the reality is, just because you like food doesn't mean that you're an expert in the food business. Doesn't mean you're an authority in the food business. So being a foodie doesn't really mean diddly squat, if you know what I mean. Of course, that's just one person's opinion. But then again, it is a founded opinion. Hello, Dave. And so for everybody watching today's show on Chicago Food Favorites, on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast, everybody watching on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, and Oceanic WOW Cable Television affiliates and Hotel TV, thank you for sticking out with this ridiculous show for today with our technical difficulties. But listen, and at some point, you know what we're going to do? Maybe we're going to get into talking about some of those lesser known sports, kind of like the underwater polo. At some point, we talk about different things like that because why? because we need to fill spot. We need to fill space. And sometimes people say, you know what? I never knew there was such a thing called underwater bowling, if you know what I mean. Yeah, well, believe me. I mean, there are crazy things. Ironing Man. We did a great segment with Marlon Greenwood, who used to do football segments for us way back in the day. And Marlon played 4 years with the Houston Texans, 4 years with the Miami Dolphins. And we asked Marlon one time, said, Marlon, come up with something different. And he said, I found this thing, and it was about Ironing Man. I'm like, what the hell is Ironing Man? I can't get to the file right now. It's a little bit too late in the show. But just funny, silly, ridiculous stuff. But what's cool about this show is that on the Sports Circus, we will discuss things that other shows either don't have the backbone or the nerve to because they don't want to lose the sponsorships that they may have, or frankly, they're just too frightened because they don't know where the content's going to go in the first place. A big hello to Terry watching us down in Florida as well. But the reality is, when there are technical issues, just like on today's show, when there are technical issues, you've got to stand fast, stand pat, and guess what? It's kind of like when Pee Wee Herman fell off his bicycle in Pee Wee's Big Adventure, rest his soul. And he fell off the bike, or he wiped out, or whatever the hell it was, and he said, I meant to do that. Right? You never know, folks. We never meant to do anything unusual in this one, except we did want to say a big thank you for Chris Pacelli, otherwise known as Bones, from Al's #1 Italian Beef, for joining us today. Of course, that always gets the super applause because that's our favorite back in Chicagoland. And of course, you can visit at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago. Go to alsbeef.com if you can't go there. Or you can also go to goldbelly.com and type in Al's #1 Italian Beef, or better yet, just Al's Beef in the search bar. We don't get anything for saying this. Maybe a beef sandwich when we're back there. But listen, it's one of our favorites. Likely when you try it, it'll be one of yours too. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the circus today. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, and we'll see you in about 23 hours on your favorite station. And by the way, tomorrow's guest, the great Brian Urlacher. All right, nice round of applause for Brian, and we'll see you then. So long, everyone. Wow! I'm your Ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.